The kitchen doors slammed open. Not swung. Slammed. The kind of entry that broke rhythm. Heads turned. A junior staff member fumbled a plate. Chloe caught it without looking. The heat, the noise, the controlled chaos of a full service, all of it paused for half a second. Nobody in that kitchen knew yet that the next 30 seconds were going to change who controlled the room. Shim Boyan stood in the doorway in ivory silk, a waitress trailing behind her mouthing apologies to anyone who would receive them. "I need the manager." Her voice cut through the kitchen noise like it was designed to. "Now." "Not in 5 minutes." Chloe set the plate down and turned. "Ma'am." Her voice was even. "How can I help you?" Boyan looked at her. Then looked past her at the stoves, the stations, the staff standing very still. Then back. "I said I need the manager." Not a pause, deliberate, her eyes moving over Chloe once, kitchen staff. "I am the manager." Chloe held her gaze. "This is my restaurant. How can I help you?" Boyan's expression didn't change. Not immediately. Then something shifted in it. Not belief. The specific recalibration of someone who had decided to proceed anyway. "You." She said it the way people repeated things they found unlikely. "You run this place." "I do." "What was the problem with your order?" Boyan's composure cracked at the edges. The dish had been wrong, not what she ordered, not what she asked for. The server hadn't listened. The entire experience had been an embarrassment. She had eaten at restaurants across 3 continents and never once. Chloe listened. Completely. When Boyan finished, she explained the dish, what it was, what had been made, how it matched the order as it had been placed. Her voice remained at exactly the same register it had started at. Unhurried. Clear. Boyan's voice climbed. Around them the kitchen had gone quiet in the particular way kitchens went quiet when everyone was pretending to work. "I don't need an explanation. I need someone who actually understands what service means. What it means to have a guest, sit down in your establishment and be treated like you were not treated poorly." Chloe's voice was still even. "Your order was prepared correctly. I've explained that. If there's something I can do to make the rest of your evening better, I'm happy to do it." "What you can do," Boyan said, stepping closer, "is understand who you're speaking to." "I know who I'm speaking to. A guest. In my restaurant." A pause. "I'd like to keep it that way." Boyan stared at her. Something moved behind her eyes, the specific recalibration of someone who had expected to be apologized to and hadn't been, and didn't know what to do with that yet. "I have been coming to establishments like this for 20 years, she said. Her voice had dropped, more dangerous now than when it was loud. "I know what good service looks like. I know what accountability looks like. And I know," she looked Chloe over once, slowly, "what it looks like when someone doesn't belong in a room like this." The kitchen was very quiet. Chloe looked at her for a long moment. Then she said, quietly and finally, "I hear your complaint, ma'am. But I will not stand here and be spoken to this way in my own kitchen." Something broke behind Boyan's eyes. Not cracked. Broke. "Do you know who my husband is?" Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. "I don't," Chloe said. "And it doesn't change what I've said." It should. The polish was completely gone now. It absolutely should. "The fact that you're standing here speaking to me like this, like you have any right to." Boyan's hand shot out, grabbed Chloe by the hair. It pulled her just off balance, not enough to fall, enough to feel it. The kitchen gasped, not loudly, just the collective involuntary sound of people witnessing something that could not be taken back. "Who do you think you are?" Her voice had become something raw and unrecognizable. "Talking to me like that. In front of everyone. Do you have any idea what I can do to a place like this? You should be grateful anyone even walks through your door." Chloe's hand closed around Boyan's wrist. She removed it from her hair. Clean. Deliberate. The way she did everything. Then she pushed her back. Not hard enough to make her fall. Hard enough to make the point absolutely clear. "You don't touch me." For words. No volume. No heat. Just fact, delivered with the complete stillness of someone who had never needed to raise their voice to be the most certain person in a room. Boyan stumbled. caught herself, straightened, her mouth opened. Boyan. One word from the doorway, spoken at a register that shouldn't have carried across the kitchen, but it did. It moved through the space and landed on every person in it with a weight that had nothing to do with volume. Boyan's body stiffened before she even turned, like the name itself had physical mass. Now, watch closely, because she still doesn't know who just walked into that room. And if you're into stories like this, like and subscribe, it only gets better from here. Yeo Kang-gil stood in the kitchen doorway. His phone was at his side. The call had ended at some point. He wasn't sure when. He had been walking back from the far end of the corridor when he heard the voices. He had slowed, then stopped. He had been standing in the doorway long enough. His expression gave nothing away. It never did. But his eyes had moved from Boyan to Chloe, to the strand of the situation between them, and the quality of his attention made the kitchen understand immediately that something had changed in the room. Boyan turned, saw him. The fury drained from her face and left something else behind, not remorse. The specific fear of someone who understood, in one instant, exactly what they had done and in front of whom. Boyan's husband appeared behind Kang-gil in the doorway. He had followed her from the dining room, reading the situation the way he had learned to read situations, quickly, from the outside in. He took one look at Kang-gil's face and his entire body recalibrated. "I'm sorry," the words came out immediately, low and fast. "This won't happen again. It was a misunderstanding. I'll handle it." Kang-gil didn't look at him. He was looking at Chloe. "Did she hurt you?" The kitchen held its breath. Chloe met his gaze. She didn't know who he was. She answered the way she answered everything, directly, without performance. "I've been better." Something moved across his face. Almost imperceptible. "Enough." He looked at Boyan. "Go back to the table." Boyan went. Her husband went after her, already talking, already managing, his voice dropping to something inaudible as the kitchen doors swung shut behind them both. Kang-gil held Chloe's gaze for one more moment. Something in it that wasn't quite an apology, more like an acknowledgement. That he had seen it. That it had been seen. Then he turned and walked back down the corridor. The kitchen stayed completely silent for 3 full seconds. Then someone exhaled and the rhythm came back, slowly, like a tide returning. Chloe turned to her station. Her hands were completely steady. Chloe Jackson had opened her restaurant 6 years ago in a neighborhood that hadn't yet become what it was now, with a lease that was slightly beyond what she could comfortably afford and a kitchen she had redesigned herself over 3 consecutive weekends. 3 people had told her the timing was wrong. She had opened anyway. The food was the reason it worked. Not the location. Not the reviews, though both had arrived in time. The food, and what happened when you sat down in one of her chairs and something came out of her kitchen that tasted like someone had thought about it deeply and cared about the result. She had grown up in a house where the kitchen was the room that made sense when nothing else did. Her mother had cooked the way other people approached the things they loved most, with complete attention, with something that looked from the outside like surrender, but was actually its opposite. Chloe had learned everything there. Not just how to cook. What food was actually for. The restaurant was that at scale. Every person she had hired understood it, or came to understand it. The ones who didn't eventually found somewhere else to be. She arrived before anyone else every morning. She was always the last to leave. Tonight she had a full house and a private dining room booked under a corporate name she didn't recognize, large party, business dinner. Her maitre d' had mentioned something about a development firm. She hadn't thought much of it. She had a full house. The private dining room held 8. Tonight it held 4, 3 men in the specific suits of people for whom suits were a daily uniform rather than an occasion, and 1 woman who had arrived already carrying the particular dissatisfaction of someone who had decided in advance that the evening would disappoint her. Yeo Kang-gil sat at the far end of the table the way he sat everywhere, without claiming the space, but occupying it completely. He had ordered without consulting anyone else. When the food arrived, he ate it with the full attention of someone who actually tasted things, which was rarer than restaurants liked to believe. The conversation moved around him. He listened more than he spoke. He always had. He noticed the waitress on their table, the tension across her shoulders, the particular precision of her movements that meant she was managing something and had been for a while. He noticed Boyan send the bread back without tasting it. Adjust her order. Speak to the waitress in the specific register of someone who wanted to be overheard being difficult. He noticed Boyan's husband registered none of it, or registered it and chose to look elsewhere, which amounted to the same thing. When the dish arrived, the one Boyan claimed she hadn't ordered, the temperature at the table changed. Her husband put his hand on her arm. She moved it. Her voice began to climb. The two other men at the table found sudden interest in their wine glasses. She stood up. Kangil watched her cross toward the kitchen. He watched the waitress exchange a look with the floor manager near the service station. He picked up his phone. A call he had been waiting on all evening had finally come through. He pushed back his chair and stepped into the corridor. He was still on the call when he reached the far end of the hallway and turned to come back. The voices reached him before the kitchen did, one escalating, one level and steady in the way of something that had decided not to move. He slowed. The call ended. He lowered the phone. He stopped at the doorway and watched. He watched long enough to understand everything, who Chloe was, what she was doing, what it was costing her to do it, and what was about to happen. He watched her absorb language designed to reduce her and respond to it with a precision most people couldn't sustain when they weren't under attack, let alone when they were. He watched the moment she reached the end of what she was willing to absorb and drew a line with 4 words and no volume. Then he watched Boyan's hand move. He stepped in after that. The restaurant emptied in the usual way, gradually, the last tables finishing their wine, the staff breaking down stations with the efficient silence of people who had been through a full service and were ready to go home. Chloe worked through all of it. She directed the close down, checked the walk-in, confirmed the prep list for tomorrow. Her sous chef appeared beside her at some point and stood there for a moment without speaking. "You good, chef?" "I'm good." He looked at her a moment longer than necessary. Nodded. Went back to his station. When the last person left, Chloe stood alone in her kitchen. Lights half down. Everything clean and still and in its place. The specific quiet of a room that had held a lot of noise and now held none. She saw the strand of hair on the floor near her station. Just one. She looked at it for a moment. Crouched, picked it up, put it in the bin. Straightened. Stood with her hand resting on the edge of her counter. Then she saw the spoon on the shelf beside the pass slightly askew. Out of the precise alignment she kept everything in. She hadn't knocked it. She straightened it with one finger. She stood there in her kitchen and breathed. Once. Then again, until it felt like hers again. Just that. Just stood there and breathed in the place she had built and let it be quiet around her. Her maitre d' came back, he always did, one last check before he locked the front. The private dining room settled their bill, he said. He held out an envelope. They left something. Inside, a tip that made her pause. Then a folded note, separate from the cash. No letterhead. No name. She unfolded it. "If you decide this isn't finished, call." A number beneath it. Nothing else. She read it twice. Folded it. Slid it into the pocket of her chef's coat. Looked at her station for a moment. Then she turned off the lights and went home. She did not call that night. 2 days later. Lunch service, quieter and easier, the restaurant at its most natural rhythm, half full and unhurried. Chloe came through the pass to check the floor. She did this at every service. Habit. She wanted to see the room the way her guests saw it. She saw him immediately. Corner table. Alone. No reservation, she would have seen it in the book. He had a glass of water and the menu and was reading it with the same quality of attention he seemed to bring to everything. He looked up the moment she came through. She crossed the room. Directly. No hesitation. "You came back. The food is good." She looked at him. You could have said that the first time. Something shifted in his expression, not quite amusement, but in the vicinity of it. She pulled out the chair across from him. Sat down. She hadn't planned to, she decided in the moment, the way she made most decisions, quickly and without second-guessing. Her floor manager noticed from across the room and said nothing. "What did you order?" he told her. She nodded. "A good choice." "Why did you really come back?" she said. "Not the food. The actual question." He held her gaze. "I wanted to see if you were all right." "I told you I was. You told me you'd been better." She looked at him steadily. He looked back. Neither of them moved. "I'm fine," she said. "My kitchen is fine. Everything is fine." "I know. Then why are you here?" A beat. "Because the food is good." The corner of his mouth moved, barely. "And because I wanted to see you." She didn't respond immediately. She studied him the way she studied most things, directly, without softening it. He didn't shift under it. Most people shifted. She noticed something on his hand, a faint mark along the outside of his knuckle, old and barely visible, the kind of mark that came from something specific. He noticed her looking. Then he looked at her wrist, the small recent burn she had stopped registering weeks ago. "Occupational," she said, before he could ask. "Does it happen often?" "Often enough." She paused. "You were paying attention." "I pay attention to most things." "To what end?" He considered it. "So I understand what I'm looking at." She sat with that for a moment. Then, "What's your name?" he told her. She nodded once. She stood, smoothed her coat, looked at him one more moment. "Enjoy your lunch." She went back to her kitchen. That evening her sous chef sent her a link without comment. A news piece, business section, 3 paragraphs. His name in the second one, connected to language she read carefully and understood precisely. She put her phone face down on her kitchen counter. She left it that way for the rest of the night. He came back to the restaurant 3 days later. She was in the kitchen. He didn't ask for her, didn't send a word. He sat at the same corner table, ordered, ate with the same attention he brought to everything, settled his bill, and left. Her maitre d' mentioned it afterward in passing, the way you mentioned things you weren't sure were relevant. The following Saturday, she was at the covered market. She went to every week, a vendor she had been using for 3 years, the same stall in the same position. She was examining tomatoes when she became aware of someone beside her. She looked up. He was there for reasons she didn't ask about and he didn't offer. They stood in the same aisle for a moment and then simply fell into step. Neither of them acknowledged it. They moved through the market for nearly an hour. She talked about what she was looking for, what had been good this season, what she was turning over for the new menu. He asked questions that told her he was actually listening, not the questions people asked when they were waiting for their turn to speak, but the ones that came from genuine curiosity about what she had just said. She laughed at something he said, short, unguarded, unplanned. She registered it a half-second after it happened. He didn't make anything of it. He drove her back to the restaurant. They sat outside for a moment in the car, engine off, neither of them moving. "Same time next Saturday," he said. She looked at him. "I go every Saturday." "I know." She got out. She didn't look back. But she was smiling by the time she reached the door and she was fully aware of it. The third time they were together, he drove them to a point above the city where the whole spread of it lay lit up below. They sat somewhere quiet and she talked, not about the restaurant, not about menus or service or suppliers. About her mother's kitchen. About the first dish she had made that tasted like something real, and how she had stood in the kitchen afterward for a long time just looking at it. About the 3 people who had told her the timing was wrong when she was opening, and how she thought about them sometimes, not with bitterness, just with the quiet, settled feeling of a fact that had proven itself. He listened with his full attention. The kind of listening that had weight to it. She realized at some point that she had been talking for a long time, and that she didn't feel exposed by it. That was new. She noticed it and filed it without saying anything. Then one of her line cooks sent her a link during a Wednesday dinner service. A different article from the business section piece, harder language, specific details, the kind of thing that didn't leave room for interpretation. His name, clearly. What it was connected to, clearly. She read it. This one didn't leave room to reinterpret anything. She finished the service, went home, did not call him, did not text, just went quiet. He didn't call either, which meant he understood exactly why she hadn't. 3 days passed. On the 4th day, she called him. Come to the restaurant. After closing. He came at 11. The front was dark, the dining room empty and still. She let him in through the kitchen entrance, her door, her terms. She hadn't consciously decided that. It was just where she went to stand when something mattered. She had left the kitchen lights at half. 2 cups of coffee on the pass. She stood on her side of the counter. He came in and sat on the stool across from her without looking for somewhere more comfortable, without suggesting they move to the dining room. He understood without being told. She looked at him. Tell me what I'm actually dealing with here. He told her. All of it, what he ran, what it required, what the reach of it was, and what it cost. He used plain language. He didn't redirect toward the parts that were easier to hear or soften the ones that weren't. He told her the way she had asked. She listened the way she always listened. Without interrupting. Without performing a reaction. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. I don't build things just to watch them get pulled into something else. She held his gaze. This place is everything I chose. I need to know it stays mine. It stays yours. You can't promise that. Anyone who brings that to your door answers to me first. He said it without volume, without emphasis. The way you stated something that was simply already decided. She looked at him for a long moment. I've never sat in anyone's kitchen before, he said. Quieter now. Not like this. A beat. Quieter still. I've never wanted to. The kitchen was very still around them. She picked up her coffee. Drank some. Set it down. Looked at the counter between them for a moment. Then she looked up. Okay, she said. Just that. The way you said something when you had thought about it fully and arrived somewhere real. He nodded once. He didn't make it a moment. He just received it, the way he received most things, quietly, completely. Service the following evening. Full house, every station moving, the kitchen doing exactly what it had been built to do. Chloe moved through it. Fully back. Fully present. Back to herself and the work and the noise and the heat and the rhythm she had built this place around. At some point her floor manager appeared at the pass. Corner table near the window. Gentleman, alone. No reservation. A pause. Would you like me to let him know we're fully committed this evening? Chloe glanced through the pass-through window. Just to confirm he was still there. Kengill sat at the corner table with a drink. Not looking at his phone. Not surveying the room. Just there, in the particular way of someone who had decided to be somewhere and mend it. Her floor manager waited. No, she said. He's fine where he is. He nodded and moved off. Then hesitated, half-turned. She was already back at her station. He's fine, she said, without looking up. The floor manager left. She worked. The kitchen moved around her, hot and loud and alive. She plated something, checked it, sent it through. She called out to her sous chef. She tasted, adjusted, moved on. And once, just once, she glanced through the pass-through window at the corner table near the window. Then she turned back to her work. A small smile. Just for herself. Just for a moment. If you made it this far, tell me the truth. Did she make the right choice, or did she just invite trouble into her life? If you felt that, like the video and subscribe for more.